Hi, I'm Jason Voss, Content Director with CFA Institute, and joining me today is Kok Song. Until recently, he was the Chief Investment Officer for the Government of Singapore Investment Corporation. His more than 40-year career saw stints at the Ministry of Finance as well as the Monetary Authority of Singapore. But today, we're not going to be talking about this very successful career in the investment business, so much as we're going to talk about another subject we think is equally important, and that's meditation. Meditation is particularly germane for the investment professional, believe it or not. And the reason why is because it helps you see the world better with greater clarity. It also helps you become, we think, a more ethical human being. A topic germane to CFA Institute, of course. So Ang, welcome.
Thank you very much, Jason. Delighted to be here.
Thank you. Our topic today, as I said, is meditation. Many in our audience may not be familiar with meditation. I wonder if you could just briefly outline for us what meditation is.
Meditation is about coming to a profound stillness of body and spirit. And this is not a new age phenomenon. I think when you meditate, we are entering a tradition of meditation that has existed for thousands of years, in all the major religions. But today, I think meditation has attracted a mass audience, and perhaps you could say a secular audience.
Right.
But important to understand that we are tapping into a wisdom tradition which has existed for thousands of years. So it is about coming to this profound stillness of body and spirit. How do you do that? What are the practical way in which you come to this stillness? My own practice of meditation involves three simple aspects. First, to bring the body to stillness, you have to learn to sit still. Now, to sit still, you have to be comfortable. So if you're sitting on a chair like this, sit with your back straight. So the rule posture is to have your spine upright and your back straight. And then take a couple of deep breaths to calm yourself. Close your eyes very lightly. Relax the muscles of your body, especially your face. Put your hands on your lap like this and ask yourselves, can I maintain this stillness for the period of meditation? 10 minutes, 20 minutes, or 25 minutes. And then the next step is to bring the mind to stillness. Now, to bring the mind to stillness, what you have to do is to discipline the mind, to focus, to concentrate on one thing. And the tradition of meditation recommends that you take a word, a mantra, and what you have to do is learning to sound this mantra, this word, quietly within you and listen to it as you sound it. Now you will find that is very challenging because your mind is constantly distracted. It is constantly wandering. And you might start off beautifully sounding the mantra, but every now and then your mind will be distracted. And the key to it is, as soon as you discover that you are distracted and you are not sounding the mantra, drop whatever distracting thoughts there are and just humbly return to sounding the mantra faithfully. So the way to deal with the distracted mind that we all have is the constant, faithful repetition of the mantra. Now, what mantra should you use? Well, I meditate as a Christian, so for me, meditation is a form of prayer. So I take as my mantra a Christian mantra because that expresses my faith. So I use the word Maranatha. The word Maranatha comes from the Aramaic language, and it means come Lord. So when I meditate, I learn to sound this word quietly within me. Maranatha. 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 And the moment some distracting thoughts come into your mind about the markets, about the stock that you are interested in, and you realize that you're no longer sounding the mantra, drop it and just return to sounding the mantra. Maranatha. If you prefer not to use the word Maranatha, there are other mantras that you can use. So if you wish to meditate, as a spiritual practitioner, you can choose a word that is meaningful in your own religious tradition. So if you're a Buddhist, you could use the Buddhist mantra. If you are a Hindu, you could use a Hindu mantra. Or if you prefer to start off by meditating in a secular way, then you could use some meaningful word such as loving kindness, peace and joy, and just repeat this word continually within you during the time of meditation. And then the third aspect of my way of meditating is that I meditate every day.
Right.
Every morning and every evening, if you're serious about meditating. Now, I've been meditating for over 25 years, and so I now meditate 25 minutes in the morning, 25 minutes in the evening. Now, do not be frightened by this commitment. The important thing is to begin.
Right.
If only once a day for 10 minutes, but begin. And then gradually, as you begin to meditate, your own experience will tell you that this is something worthwhile for you to do, and then you gradually increase your period of meditation. So I would recommend when you're finally able to develop the discipline, meditate every morning and every evening for between 20 to 30 minutes.
What you've just described is a very simple process. You've given a very detailed answer, which is wonderful.
Yes.
But the main thing, I think, to emphasize, and I think you'd probably agree with me, is this is a simple practice. It's very portable, right? All you need is yourself and some space.
Exactly, Jason. I think this is the key. Not to understand, not to perceive meditation as a complicated technique, as an esoteric practice. No. It is radically simple. It is so simple that a child of 5 years old can do it. A very old person who is dementia can also meditate. So it's radically simple. And the right way to understand meditation is that it is a discipline.
Yes.
It is a discipline. And there are three aspects of this discipline. First of all, there's the discipline of committing the time of meditation every day. Secondly, there's the discipline of learning to sit still. And then thirdly, the discipline of humbly sounding the mantra and being content to sound it, leaving behind all thoughts.
So this is a natural segue to the practical benefits, because the subject of meditation itself is not necessarily interesting to our audience without that practicality, because of course we're investment professionals and we want to add alpha, we want to be more ethical practitioners of finance. Talk to us about some of those benefits.
First of all, you need to understand the significance of the practice. How does sitting still and sounding this mantra every day, how does that transform you as a human person, or even transform you as a financial analyst? Try to understand that in accepting this discipline, there are two powerful forces that comes into play. First of all, you are taking the time every day to be with yourself. I think it is probably the kindest thing that each of us can do for ourselves, to find that time for peace, for quiet. And what happens during the time of meditation is that in that stillness and in that silence, we are going to a place deep within us, our center, where there's a place of peace and harmony. And my teacher of meditation, the Catholic Benedictine monk John Main, said that the key to understand the value of meditation is that there is this principle of peace and harmony within ourselves. If only we can make the time to go there.
So there's no Bloomberg terminal, there's no CNBC in the United States. All of that you're able to put in the background is what I hear you
I think
saying.
we live in a very noisy world.
Yeah.
And I think people are hungry to find silence, to find solitude.
Yes.
You know, and I think you will find that that is perhaps one of the very simple therapies, you know, for the busy executive, for the noisy mind.
Right.
You know? But secondly, what we are doing in meditating is we are doing a work. So don't be misled that, you know, you are just going on a relaxation exercise. No. In sitting still and saying the mantra, we are doing a work. And the work that we are doing is the work of paying attention.
Right.
We are fully awake, fully alert during the time of meditation. And the attention that we are cultivating is a very special attention. It is called selfless attention. Selfless attention in the sense that we are paying attention, but we are paying attention not to ourselves, not to our thoughts, our ideas, our plans, our problems. We are simply paying attention to sounding the mantra.
Right.
And in the process of doing so, as our attention is diverted from ourselves, we are transcending our ego. We are transcending our habitual mode of self-centeredness. So I think the power of meditation, and it consists in our going to this place of peace and harmony within ourselves and learning to transcend our ego. And that's where, you know, the benefits of meditation and the spiritual fruits of meditation, you know, can be linked to. So for example, people who have meditated for many years, like Ray Dalio of Bridgewater, speak about meditation helping him to come to clarity of mind, creativity of thought, and the ability to perceive the truth, the reality of things. Now, how does that happen? I think that happens because in the process of meditating, by taking a rest from thinking, actually we become more creative in our thinking, not during the time of meditation, but outside the time of meditation. And also, I think all of us have a habitual mode of existence,
Right.
which is usually thinking or doing.
Right.
So we have to move into another mode of existence, which is learning to be. To be. And remember that we are human beings. So the word human being suggests we have to learn to be. And to learn to be means to take a rest from thinking, from doing, and just learning to be comfortable in our own skin. You know, and it's about, you know, letting go of our plans, of our desires. Because it's our plans and the desires that creates stress, you know. Not that we should not have plans or desires, but during the time of meditation, we learn a certain detachment from those things. And in the process, I think it helps to activate our total potential. I mean, as you know, I think depending on your personality, we are usually operating either with our left brain or our right brain.
Right.
I think one good way of understanding meditation is that in meditating, we are activating perhaps the unused part of our brain. And because you're activating the other half of the brain, you then are able to see things as a whole,
Right.
in a more integrated way, you see? So from my own experience, I think that is how the clarity of mind and the creativity of thought comes about from the silence and the stillness.
What you've just described is so important. Behavioral finance, which has captivated, you know, the financial community now for the last almost 30 years, you know, it's very good at describing a tautology of errors in judgment, and essentially, though, it doesn't give you a remedy. Yes. What I hear you saying is that meditation is a way of coming to more conscious awareness of self, of your surroundings,
Yes.
of what's going on around you. And in that way, it could serve as a natural antidote to some of these things that behavioral finance rightfully points out that are errors in judgment. Am I interpreting you correctly?
I think this is a very, very interesting point.
Yeah.
And the way to understand it is that how do we come to see the reality of things? How do we see the truth of things? And the problem is that most of us tend to perceive reality or to perceive the truth of what's happening in a way that is distorted. It's distorted by our ego, our self-centeredness, our biases, our prejudices, you know. We are very protective of our way of thinking. Sometimes we tend to sift information, you know, for those things that confirm our biases.
Yes.
So I think the power of meditation in helping us to see the reality of things is that we are transcending the ego. We are leaving the ego behind. And by leaving the ego behind, by transcending the ego, we are better able to perceive reality undistorted by the ego.
So this is very interesting, of course, because the job as an analyst, of course, is to understand information as well as one can, and then to act as well. And what I hear you saying as well is that oftentimes there's anxiety, there's anxiousness, what have you. So one great thing about meditation is you see information that you wouldn't have seen before. You see it maybe more clearly because it's less biased by your prejudices, but then there's also, now what do I do with it? You know, as an investor, we're compelled to act on the information that we've identified as important. And it sounds like meditation also might be a ready-made technique to empower a great decision, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think in the spiritual traditions, the teaching about living one's life meaningfully and fully is to find this balance between contemplation and action. In other words, action will be more meaningful, the things that you do will be more meaningful, and the way you do things will be better if you can find the time to be in solitude, you know, so that the way you act, what you do and the way you act arises from that place of stability within you. Emotional stability, mental clarity. So I think we all have an ego. And the ego is not a bad thing because the ego is what gives us the drive to want to achieve things. But what we need is a healthy ego. You know? And by a healthy ego, what I mean to say is that we must develop a way in which we can act the best we can, but to have a certain detachment from the results of our action. Because sometimes, with the best of action, with the best of analysis, the outcome might be beyond your control. And therefore, I think that should not paralyze you. I think what is important is that when you have to make a decision, you make a decision in the best way possible. Then to save yourself all the anxiety,
Right.
be detached from the results, knowing that you have given of your best. I think that's very important for people who want to sustain their career in the risk-taking world. But Jason, I think it's important to for people who wish to meditate, to approach it not with a narcissistic attitude.
Right.
That you want to get something out of it. You see, it's understandable. You know, you want to get relief from stress, you want to think more clearly, and those are laudable objectives. But if you approach meditation with this, what do I get out of it? If I'm going to put in this effort, what is the payoff? Then I think it's counterproductive because then the ego is inflamed.
Right.
The ego wants to get something of it. So I think it would be helpful to approach meditation in a way where you say, well, I think this makes a lot of sense to me, and to be able to understand that beyond the practical benefits, which there are, the practical benefits that we've just described, but to understand that this practice will lead to a transformation of your whole being. I mean, for example, if you can learn to transcend the ego, then what happens is that you're able to enter into better relationships. I mean, a better relationship with yourself, with your spouse or your partner, with your friends, with your colleagues, and with the world. Because you no longer sort of position yourself as at the center of the world.
Right.
You begin to see your interconnectedness with the rest of the world. And also the practice of attention that I spoke about, I think that is critical. That is critical to relationships. Because the key to relationships, to respect for other people, is to be able to pay attention to them. So I think the attention that we cultivate in the silence of meditation is a very powerful way for us to transform our whole being. And therefore, beyond the practical benefits of meditation, there are the spiritual fruits.
Right.
And the spiritual fruits are peace, love, joy, kindness, goodness, gentleness,
Respect.
self-control, respect.
Yes.
So I think when we think about it, those are the things that contribute to the wholeness of life.
This theme that you've just struck upon is germane to CFA Institute and its members, of course, because of the Future of Finance project,
Yes.
which we're endeavoring to undertake to restore trust in finance. And again, a secondary benefit, not necessarily the focus of a meditation practice, but a benefit nonetheless is this interconnectedness with other people, these relationships you're talking about.
Yes.
And through a meditation practice, and I know this personally because I meditate also, you can't help but be a better person, a more centered person, more ethical person as well.
Yes.
And it sounds like what you're saying and you're advocating as well is that meditation is maybe a part of the conversation that finance ought to have with itself going forward about if we want to restore trust, we have to instill these values, and meditation
Yes.
is one possible means to that,
Yes.
that end.
Yes. Well, I mean, Jason, we all wish for peace in the world. So we say, let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. So in the same way, for people like you and me who work in the finance profession, the future of finance begins with you. So we now have a challenge. We've got to restore trust. We've got to restore integrity. And we have got to operate by higher ethical standards, you know. And so I feel that, yes, regulation is needed, laws are needed to make explicit what is acceptable and what is unacceptable. But the most important form of regulation is self-regulation. And by self-regulation, I mean the conscience, the inner voice.
What do you do when no one's looking?
The spirit. So you can draft laws. As long as you have laws, there will be lawyers who can suggest to you how you can, comply with the letter of the law. How do you comply with the spirit of the law? I think that is where the individual has got to enter into himself, go to where his spirit is, and listen to that inner voice, that conscience. So I think that is we need to have laws, but I firmly believe that the finance professional, I think, has got to go to this place of integrity within himself. And then from that place of integrity, I think you will be able to perceive better what you should do.
On that note, let's conclude, but I want you to quickly talk about where would somebody who's interested in the meditation tradition that you've practiced, where would they go? Is it wccm.org?
Yes.
All right.
Our community is WCCM, the World Community for Christian Meditation. We practice meditation from the Christian tradition, but we feel that it is our responsibility to bring the value of meditation to address many of the issues challenging our society, such as in business and finance, but also in other areas, for example, in interfaith friendship, in care for the sick and dying, mental illness, and also children. The children are the future of the world. So I feel that it's very important for us to be able to share with our children at a very early age this very simple practice so that they can find this peace and this harmony within themselves and be confident in their whole being. So we have begun a program of teaching meditation to children in schools in various countries in the world. So we're very excited that that the world has awakened, to the wisdom of this tradition of meditation that we are talking about today. And the question is, how do we join hands with like-minded organizations so that we can tap into the wisdom tradition for the betterment of the world.